Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. Today we're going to be looking at another Rayman game, Rayman Rush for the PS1, released in 2002, developed by Ubisoft. So Rayman Rush is essentially a PS1 port of the PS2 game Rayman M. Unlike the previous games in the Rayman series which were platformers and much more story based, Rayman Rush is a racing game. One of the first things you will notice about the game is it's visually indistinguishable from Rayman 2 The Great Escape. It has pretty much the exact same style and visual aesthetic, as well as the same control scheme as Rayman 2, giving the game a good sense of familiarity if you played Rayman 2. You basically have to play through each racetrack and complete 4 different modes to unlock the next set of tracks and progress in the game. In the beginning of the game you have 4 playable characters to choose from. You of course have Rayman, the protagonist of the game, his best friend Glowbox, who was introduced in Rayman 2, Henchman 800, who was the standard robot pirate enemy in Rayman 2, and Admiral Razorbeard, who was of course the main villain of Rayman 2. As you complete and unlock new racetracks, you will also unlock several more playable characters, including Tilly the Fairy, Henchman 1000, which was one of the tougher robot pirate variants of Rayman 2, Razorwife, who is the wife of Razorbeard, yeah, Razorbeard has a wife, who would have thought, and Globette, who is the wife of Glowbox, who once again was also introduced in Rayman 2. So you have plenty of playable characters, and what's good about it is you can return to the main menu at any time, between races, and select any character, adding to the replay value. What I will say though is that there isn't much of a practical difference between each character. The differences between them appear to be purely cosmetic, and they all pretty much seem to move at the same speed and have all the same abilities. You can shoot your enemies by pressing square just like in Rayman 2, and this serves several purposes, including freezing your enemies and slowing them down, activating and removing certain obstacles or useful items, obtaining collectibles, and even grabbing a hold of purple lums to swing on them just like in Rayman 2. Each racetrack has 4 different modes. First of all you have the championship mode, which is basically a race between you and another character. Complete 4 laps before your opponent to win the race. Simplicity itself. What I will say though is that the AI can be pretty challenging and the opponent will outwit you at times, but not too often, and it's not too difficult. And once you know and understand the layout of a particular track, you should be able to do it fairly easily. You have a time attack mode where, rather than race against an NPC, you simply race against the clock. Simply try to reach the end of the track within a certain time. You have Lums mode where you once again race against an opponent, while at the same time collecting yellow Lums. Collect as many of them as you can in 3 laps while simultaneously trying to win the race. This sounds difficult, but for some reason I actually found this mode very easy. Occasionally you may miss some of the Lums, but if you know where all the shortcuts and diversions are, you should be able to find them easily enough. And finally you have target mode. This consists of you having to complete a racetrack once again, but this time the track will be littered with butterflies that you will have to collect by using your ranged attack. Once again, these are pretty easy to find, and I actually managed to get most of them on my first go on each track. Like I said before, completing a set of tracks will unlock a whole new set, as well as new playable characters. What I really like about this game is the overall design of each track. Each track has its own style and visual aesthetic, mostly based on locations from Rayman 2. For example, you have woodland type levels, creepy underground levels, and robot pirate themed levels to name a few. The tracks are littered with obstacles and hazards, as well as shortcuts and various platforms. I really like the visual style of the whole game, and the racetracks all feel unique and all well made. The game also runs very smoothly and the controls and overall gameplay is very good. The graphics and presentation, while of course being a bit dated due to this being a PS1 game from 2002, are pretty good and they look fine by me. The character models are all pretty much the same as they were in Rayman 2, and the game's sound design is actually pretty decent. I also like the game's soundtrack. It's not quite as epic or as mysterious as Rayman 2's soundtrack, but it definitely suits the tone of this game in my opinion. Each character has their own personal soundtrack that plays while you play as them, and each soundtrack suits them perfectly. I particularly like Glowbox's theme tune. It's catchy, right? The game isn't perfect though. One criticism I do have is that the game doesn't really have much of a story, and it could have done with a few more cutscenes and some more dialogue. Also, a few new modes like in the PS2 version would have helped, but to be fair, with this being a PS1 port, you have to take into consideration the technical limitations of the hardware and the time. Nonetheless, I still think more effort could have been made to make the game a little bit more immersive and a little bit more varied. So all in all, I don't really have any serious criticisms for the game. As a racing game, it does pretty much everything I would want it to do, minus the lack of story, and, like I said before, it visually resembles Rayman 2, which is one of my personal favourite video games of all time. I give Rayman Rush a solid 7 out of 10. It's a game I would recommend to anybody who is a fan of racing games, as well as any Rayman fan. Thanks for watching guys, I had an absolute blast playing and reviewing Rayman Rush. Let me know what you guys think, stay tuned for more retrospective video game reviews. I may return to the Rayman series at some point, we'll see. Thanks for watching and God bless.